I'm Rob Skinner, and this is the Rob Skinner Podcast. Today I'm interviewing Dwayne and Tsega Blai, missionaries to Bridgetown, Barbados. They left their secular careers to work in the ministry and then go overseas to serve on the mission field. The church has been growing under their leadership, and they've been doing a great job reaching teens and college students. All this and more on the Rob Skinner Podcast. Welcome back to the Rob Skinner Podcast. My goal is to inspire you to live a no-regrets life, make this life count, and multiply disciples, leaders, and churches. This has been a crazy week for me. It's been really challenging. There's a young man that I studied the Bible with and baptized in September, and he just passed away on Monday morning. And it was just a shock to me, to the church, to my family, and it was so sad. And we had a memorial just the other night, Wednesday night. His family was there, and I'm probably going to have a separate episode about this, but it was just so sad, but at the same time so awesome that he had become a Christian just 2 months before he passed away. So just pray for the family of Evan Snow and for the church here in Tucson. And we are fighting through this and just moving on here. So it's been real challenging. And I want to thank you for listening to the Rob Skinner Podcast. If you feel like you're benefiting from the program, I'd like to ask you to support it with a gift, because your support enables me to multiply disciples, leaders, and churches, and inspire others to do the same through this podcast. All you need to do is simply go to the show notes, and there's a link to support the program. Say again, Dwayne, welcome to the program.
Hello.
Hey, thanks for having this on. It's a privilege. I've, especially during the pandemic, I've been thriving off of these podcasts, so I feel like I'm paying it forward by being able to share. So thanks for inviting me. I love this.
Thank you so much. It's great to talk to you guys. In our previous talk offline, it was so cool to hear your story and what God is doing there in Barbados. And I was like, man, we got to get these guys on the program. It's really good news about what's happening down there. So how did you guys become Christians?
So I became a Christian freshman year. I was 19 years old in college, and I was reached out to by a dear friend of mine. So I'm Ethiopian. So my friend from middle school, she became a disciple. She's a year ahead of me in campus and college. And then, so when I came to campus, she said, hey, there's a Bible study group that meets on your campus. I lived about maybe 3 hours from home. And it was, of course, away from my Ethiopian community. I grew up in Northern Virginia. So even though I was in America, I felt like I was in Ethiopia. I mean, I went to Ethiopian Orthodox Church. Most of my friends were Ethiopians. And so branching out, going to college, it was very culture shock, especially DC area. There's so much diversity. And so the school that I went to was a small school. I was definitely a minority. And so I prayed and asked God to, meet friends. And my friend who I called, she was like an hour away. She connected me to disciples. I got together with them, complete strangers, and got challenged to the core as far as my belief system. I was like, wow, I don't know God's word. It's 2 Timothy, 3:16, 1 Timothy 4:16, scriptures that just really convicted me. And but it was a struggle because my family, I come from a very tight-knit community. And there was a sense of, you better not do anything. You are already a Christian. You got baptized as a baby. So it's great that you found some great people, but don't do nothing crazy in the sense of conversion. Yeah. But of course, God's word moved me. And it was after a campus devotional Friday night. I was at the minister's home. During that time, you guys know Ed and Deb. Anton. We studied late through the night, and about 2 o'clock in the morning, I was like, I gotta make this happen. I can't wait. I can't call my family. It's too late to call them. But got baptized 2 a.m. in the morning. People came, campus all through the night. They'll stay up. They came, they supported me, and called my family the next day after I got baptized. And it was kind of, that it was intense. The phone hung up on my ear, but I was like, amen, praise God. I made the best decision. And so I've been a disciple for 24 years now.
I came around a few years later, same campus ministry, but a different school. I went to Old Dominion University while she went to Christopher Newport. I would say that I was a very religious guy on the outside, but very worldly on the inside. And, for me, I felt like I had everything good going for me in regards to, my year in college. I started gaining lots of friendships, had a girlfriend that I wanted to marry. We had been dating for about 3 years at that moment, actually almost 4, when I finally met the church. Straight A student for the most part. But so I had all these things going for me on the outside, and I figured, man, I really need to know the Bible, because that would kind of put me in a whole different level as a human being. If I could just get all these things going well for me, but just add the Bible in there as well. And then, man, he's a perfect human being, right? That was kind of my thing. And so when I was, when someone knocked on my door, my sophomore year in college, at first I rejected the offer because my roommates didn't want to go to this Bible discussion. They were like, close the door. And so I said, yeah, no, thank you. And then 5 minutes later, someone else knocked on my door, invited me to a Bible discussion. And I thought, you know what? This must be a really good opportunity. Let me go downstairs. And I went down to the Bible discussion. And we kind of started getting to know the guys for a while, studied the Bible the next semester for about 3 to 4 months, and was broken by the cross. I knew I was a sinner, but I was avoiding actually wanting to change, wanting to get rid of sin. And so finally, I think the cross is what broke me down. 5-hour study at the brother's household, studying the cross from 7 p.m. to midnight. And I think that was where I realized that, wow, I really did hurt Jesus. And I had the motivation to really change from the inside out, not just follow add a few more rules to my lifestyle, but I think from the inside out, God definitely transformed me. And broke up with my girlfriend. That was probably one of the hardest decisions I ever made in my life. And that was a 3-hour conversation. That was tough. And decided to join these new people that I just met and be their brother in the faith, and got baptized.
Wow. And what year was that?
This was 2002, late March 2002, March 29th.
Okay. Didn't get back together with the girlfriend. Did she ever make it, or?
She actually, that was a tough issue, but she actually, a few months later, after I really kind of had to cut it off, she did study the Bible and became a Christian a few months later, September of that year. She stuck around for about a few years, but then she ended up leaving the church later.
Okay. Well, how did you guys meet? How did you guys get together?
Actually, at one point, I was mentoring his ex-girlfriend because the hopes was to bring them back together, right?
Sure.
But it didn't work out. But then we met. We were both interns at the church, and so I was kind of exiting internship, and he was entering. And but then we also led campus ministry together in our region, and so our relationship solidified even more so. And we started building, and you know how it is. You spend a lot of time, you're planning, you're praying, you're doing God's will together.
And honestly, I did not want to like Tsega. I did not, because the situation with my ex-girlfriend went haywire. I wasn't happy. I was a little bitter. And I felt like, God, I don't want to like anybody. I just want to do your work. I want to lead brothers, help build the ministry. And so that was kind of the backdrop of me and her working together. I was like, nope, I'm not going to like her. And of course, being close in her proximity it was obvious. Okay, I'd be stupid if I let this opportunity go, for sure.
Yes. And I think the big, what is it? The turning point in our relationship too is we went to the San Antonio conference.
The first ICMC they had in a while.
Yeah.
Back in 2005.
Yes. And so it worked out that out of the 4 flights, we sat together, right?
3 out of the 4 flights.
3 out of the 4 flights. So we thought we were being set up by the staff. And they're like, no, it just worked out. We're like, okay.
I'm still curious about how that all worked out.
So we had a lot of time to connect and bond.
Oh man, that was
during the flight.
Yeah.
From Virginia all the way to San Antonio, Texas. So it was
yeah, many people laugh about that plane ride because it was, you know, we prayed together, we were praying out loud in the plane and sharing our faith in the plane. And it was just a really cool, by the time we were heading back home, I was like, yeah, she's definitely the one. Really awesome. Cool flight.
That's great. Okay, so when did you guys get married? How long was your courtship?
I think altogether we were together for 2 years before we got married, meaning we were engaged.
Yeah, we
courted for...
We did it for a little over a year.
Yeah.
Got engaged in 2006, got married 2007.
Yeah.
In August 4th, 2007. So about 2 years altogether.
Okay, and so you guys were doing the ministry at that time? You guys were serving in the church or?
Grad school. So we were in grad school doing campus ministry during that time. Yeah, I guess period, right? You were finishing up her
full-time students, but serving in campus.
Serving campus. So we were doing campus ministry in grad school.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. And intern, campus ministry interns.
Okay, so you guys were both grad students. That's impressive right there. But what were you guys studying? What were your degrees in?
My degree, I have a bachelor's in computer engineering, and I stuck with it for the master's. So I got my master's in computer engineering, and she was doing.
Yeah, I got my master's in elementary education. So.
Okay. So.
Teacher, man.
Okay, so you got married in 2007. And so you guys have been married 17 years now.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And any kids?
Yes.
3 of them.
3 beautiful kids. Yes. We have a 11-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a soon to be 15-year-old. So we have a boy, girl, boy.
Yeah.
That's known as the gauntlet right there. That's exciting times right there. That's exciting. Yeah. I look forward to talking about that. That's awesome. Okay, so 3 kids, 11, 13, and 17?
15.
Almost 15.
Almost 15, yes.
Okay, that's fantastic. Give me an overview of what you've been doing since your conversion, your marriage. You know, just kind of give me a big picture. What's been happening?
So yeah, we were just talking about this. So once we got married, we were doing campus ministry, right? We got baptized in the campus. After we got married, we eventually, after a year, went into the team ministry in our church. And so we did team ministry for another 5 years up until 2013. So we were leading the region of our team ministry, our region's team ministry up until 2013.
Yes, while Dwayne was working full time, and then I worked as a teacher, but then once I started having my kids, I stayed home. So I became a stay-at-home mom.
Correct.
Yep.
And then after 2013, when we had our 3rd kid, then we moved into the marriage ministry, started leading the Bible talk in the marriage. Eventually, we kind of oversaw a group of married Bible talks, and then in 2017, that was when we went into the ministry full time. I quit my job and went to the ministry full time, and then from there, we've been lots of places. Still in Hampton Roads, but we did singles for a little while. Well, we actually led our regions. We led part of the church for 1 year. Then we did singles for a little while. Then we did campus ministry for 2 years. Went back to overseeing a region with another couple. And then we were asked to come to Barbados. And that's what got us here.
Okay. So pretty varied background. Okay. Now, you were in the ministry when you were younger. Is that right out of college? No?
As interns.
Yeah, we were getting paid as interns. Yeah, interns while we were in school.
While you're in,
For like a year.
okay, but then you just went into a job working in a company doing computer work.
Correct. Yeah, I was a software programmer for a shipbuilding company.
Okay.
For the Navy.
Now, in our previous conversation, you said that Tsega at one point is like, I don't want to do ministry. Okay,
Yeah.
can you just talk a little bit about that? What was going on there?
Sure. So we yeah, go on.
Well, just to preface it.
Yes.
So the idea was that as we were doing team ministry, the goal was for us to go into the ministry. That was the hope. That was kind of the plan. And then around 2013, that's when, there were opportunities for us to go into the ministry, and we were talking about it, looking about it, praying about it. But then it became clear, and Tsega came out saying, no, I don't want to do the ministry. And that's where we had to start working through where we were at. So.
Yes. So we did, like he said, we did team ministry for a long time. And this was a time that I was also having babies. Seems like I was pregnant every other year. So, but I think there was a lot of, team ministry is exciting. There's, you put in a lot of energy. There's a lot that goes into it. But then after a while, I think I got burnt out. And I just remember somebody saying, if you could lead the teens, you could lead the church. And I was like, no, I'm good. I don't want to lead the church. Really, that was my thought. But and then I think but also just doing things, but not really being open and sharing and being vulnerable. And I think having babies, that's just a very vulnerable time, in our marriage, in my body, my hormones. And I think I just kind of, eventually I just wanted to step away and get more healing. I think having children too was exposing some things that were in my past that I, needed to deal with. And so all that kind of came together, and then I just, was open, and I'm like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. And I just remember during that time, I was kind of in a fragile situation in a sense. And, one of my best friends, she's like, well, I'm not going to ask you to come to any conferences, or I was kind of a hands off, like just leave Tsega alone. It didn't last that long, but I needed that time to even know where I'm at. I think I was just so used to doing, and being a mom too, you're constantly doing and changing diapers, you're just not thinking. And so I needed that time to reflect and get healing. And so I did pursue, therapy, healing, and that helped a lot. And it just shifted a lot of my perception and the way I viewed people, the way I viewed myself. I think I felt like, the pressure I was putting on myself, it wasn't coming from anybody, but there was a lot of internal pressure to produce or to do something or to. And so once I was able to recognize that and also shift the blame, I started projecting, I guess you could say, that person reminds me of somebody in my family. And so there was a lot of that going on, and I needed to heal. And so once I started healing and getting help, then I was like, okay, hey, let me accept God's grace, and I could do this rather than I have to do it,
Wow. Okay.
That makes sense.
Dwayne, from your perspective, what did you see?
Whew. It was a challenge. It was a very challenging time, to be honest. It was, I think for me, I was used to Tsega, in my opinion, being the strong, not saying she's not strong, but, I didn't see her as fragile or sensitive. And that was part of my problem. And so I wasn't aware of her needs, and she's always a happy-go-lucky person. And, and so I didn't know deep down that there was a lot of pain she was feeling, a lot of fear she had, a lot of pressure she felt. I was completely out of touch, which surprised, a man be out of touch at times. And we were doing a lot. I mean, in team ministry, there were a lot of challenges going on. Also, we were young married. So we were involved in almost every ministry of the church. It felt like young married, fathers classes, teen stuff. And so I feel like I was constantly kind of dragging her around without really knowing what was in her heart. And so when she finally opened up, it just kind of, the floodgates just opened of, I'm not happy. I'm not happy with what's going on with ministry. I'm not happy with you. And it was one of those things for me that I had to start learning how to actually have compassion rather than being upset, because I felt like her pain was inconveniencing our ability to make an impact and make a difference. And that was something I had to really get a lot of help with. Even at one point, I remember someone asked me, it might have been Tsega asking me, would you be happy if we never did ministry again? And I felt angry. And I think that anger revealed to me that, Dwayne, there's something there that you got to work through, where ministry is so important. Helping people in this way is so important. That's way more important than helping your wife. And so I just thank God for a lot of brothers, Ed Anton, I think about Tony Oliver is one guy, but just a lot of guys that really helped me to learn how to be sensitive, how to care, and let go. If God wants you to go into ministry one day, he'll make it clear. But what's most important is that you actually care about your family. 1 Timothy 3 was a big scripture I held on to, that how can you lead God's church if you can't manage your household well? And it showed me that God had a priority, that this is my church, is at home with my wife and my kids. And if I'm not really giving my heart and time there, then what business do I have trying to do greater things outside of that?
I've been reading a book by Steve Farrar called Finishing Strong, and he talks about that. He talks about, basically being there for your family and not allowing anything to derail you. And he talks about some of the traps for people, either in the full-time ministry or just strong Christians. And he talks about how, other women, money can be a trap, but he also talks about how neglecting your family for the sake of the ministry. And it is such a trap. And that's what makes it so impressive, what you shared there, because a lot of people, they start out strong, but they neglect their family, especially, in particular, the guy is so driven for the ministry and his ambition, and then will just, set his family on the shelf. And it's impressive that you were able to make an adjustment rather than just kind of drive it into the ground. That's
well,
impressive.
And two things with that. I think two things I had to own for myself was, one, there was a lot of unhealthy ambition there. I don't think the ambition to want to do ministry was unhealthy, but I did see the glory in that this is a glorious, noble task before God. I didn't see being a husband as a glorious, noble task. And that was one thing that I had to really start coming to grips with, that, man, my mindset is so warped when it comes to being a husband and how God values that image of him, with two becoming one. And then the other thing that was difficult that I had to learn was just to really accept the fact that now that my wife is being open, I have to allow her to have that space to let all of her vitriol and all of her anger and those things come out for a few years. Because I think I was easily offended by, the things she would say, or just feeling like, can we host, or can we have people over? No, I don't want to have people over. What do you mean you want to have people over? Or can we go do this workshop? Or can we leave this? And she's like, nope, I don't want to do it. And people had to help me understand, hey, bro, like, she's been hurting for a long time. You got to be very sensitive in how you try to approach getting her to do anything, right? Getting her to speak, getting her to preach. And so at one point I felt like, wow, is this going to be our life? Or it's just going to be, wow, but it was part of the pain of just loving my wife, right, more than the opportunities.
Right. That's great. Okay, so a period of time went by. You were working with this shipbuilding company.
Yeah.
Why and how did you get back into the ministry, like in the paid ministry at least?
So it's funny because opportunities would pop up. And I remember thinking, oh, this would be great. But then, Ed will say, well, Dwayne, don't even entertain it right now. Just love your wife, right? Um, but I remember at one point we started having some conversations because it was a very taboo subject. Like it would become an explosive topic. If I ever brought up ministry or anything like that, it would get a little tense. And Tsega would kind of push back and, don't, and so I think I remember probably around 2016, a couple, Steve and Charlie Stevenson, moved to Virginia. Well, they were already in Virginia for a while, but they started getting with us and kind of learning about our past and letting Tsega spill her guts about what went on and the things that hurt us about ministry, the things she felt about ministry, about me. And they really helped us, I think, in many ways to kind of start the healing of really believing and having faith that God can still use us despite the pain of the past. And that was very key, I think, was them getting with us, them believing in us, them having faith that God can still do great things. And they put us in different positions to serve without having the title. I think my wife just didn't want a title, but my wife was still a servant the whole time. Trust me. Just the whole title thing made her feel, no, don't call me, don't call me a leader. I'm just going to do it. But then just to kind of give a quick thing, the next year in 2017, I believe it was going to happen, Tsega started getting therapy. And I think she came up to me at one point and said, hey, Dwayne, just to let you know, I wouldn't mind in the next 5 years entertaining the idea of going into the ministry again. Mm-hmm. And I think at that point I was 35. And I thought, okay, cool. Like she mentioned it. Wasn't me. So by the time we're 40, I'm 40. I guess it's on her mind. She's thinking about it. So that was a really cool breakthrough. But you know how God works. The moment she's starting to get soft-hearted about it, just to let you know how it all happened, that summer, Steve Stevenson, who was leading our region, he had to move to California because Kevin Maines passed away. And I think they wanted him to come back to California. And so we kind of stepped in. It was us and 3 other couples who were leading our region of the church as a committee. And everyone's like, hey, man, what do you think about, bro, why don't you just go into the ministry, man? Like, why don't you just lead the church here? And I thought, I would love to, but, I don't want to throw my wife under the bus, but she's not. I wouldn't say anything. In the back of my mind, I thought, oh, she's just not there. But eventually, I didn't even know her heart was surrendered as well to go into the ministry. And so we were actually fasting one day, which is really funny. I asked the church, let's all fast for an evangelist to move here. And the day we were fasting, Ed called me on the phone to say, hey, Dwayne, by the way, just let you know, we're still looking for an evangelist, and we found somebody. Corey Stuck could come here, but he can't come for another 10 months. But I want you to know he's agreed to move. And I thought, okay, great. I mean, that helps us a year from now. And he said, but I was just wondering, what do you think about quitting your job and going into the ministry? And I thought, oh my goodness, really? I said, Ed, you kind of know where I'm at, but has anybody talked to Tsega about this? He said, yeah, Deb already talked to Tsega first. I made sure she talked to Tsega first. And Tsega already agreed. I thought, whoa. All right, this is real. And so we talked about it, we prayed, and we decided, okay, let's do this.
Tsega, what was going on? Yeah, what happened there? There was a change there for you. What was it?
I think there was just a surrender. There was more security in God. There was an understanding of God's grace, I believe, that God was going to help me with this journey, that it wasn't my own strength. So I think there was a lot of maturity. There was during this time. And I think, that helped the transition. And of course, even during that period, we're still seeing God work. I mean, we were able to see miracles happen, able to see neighbors get baptized. I mean, you see God working in the midst of it. And I think, we prayed and fasted. I was like, okay, God is telling me, Tsega, I believe in you. I got you. When I started listening to him rather than I have to, or I don't know, just the, that it was a privilege and an honor versus a duty. So I think I had to just change my focus from duty to privilege. And so that was, yeah,
That's
a lot of
awesome.
prayers.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. So you guys went back into the ministry, and then how did Barbados come up?
You want to share? You want to share?
Go for it.
So the beginning of 2023, we had visited a church just kind of New Year's. We went to go visit her family. On the way back, we stopped by, and we were just hanging out there. And then, it was just really random, in my opinion. A brother came up to us and said, "Hey, let's go for a walk." And we were walking, and at the end, he said, "Hey, by the way, I know this might freak you out a little bit. Relax. I just want to ask you a question. How would you feel about the opportunity to actually move to Barbados to go lead the church there?" And we looked at each other and thought, "What? Barbados? What?
Where is Barbados?"
Right. I mean, I knew it was in the Caribbean, but I like, what? Okay. So he talked for another 5 minutes, telling us the situation there, and great church, great people, and that he had been working to try to help the church to turn around in many ways, but the big thing they needed was to somebody to move there and love them, and say, just wanted to see if you'd be willing, and that started the seed that. After that, we drove back home for 2 hours and just started talking and dreaming and praying. Could this really be from God? Let's not close the door. Let's think this through.
And it's January 1st. So this is the beginning of the new year. So we're like, okay, God.
Right. But of course, by the time you've already kind of started making plans for your church and everything that year. And so you're like, oh, whoa. So that started the process. But the next few months would be crazy. A wild adventure trying to figure out what God's will was to move or stay. That's how it started.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So he just kind of gave you the idea, and then you guys were talking about it. And then how long before you decided, hey, we're going to pull the trigger and go? This is so this is just January of last year. Okay. So this is less than
January.
2 years ago.
Yeah, and I'll just share. I mean, it was a very, very hard decision, like very excruciating hard decision, agonizingly hard. I mean, it was just painful to figure it out. Yeah.
So how old are you guys at this time? Like,
We're like 40?
Yeah, 40. Yeah, 40. I was 40. You were what, 41?
Okay, so you guys are, I mean, midlife, not.
Yeah.
Not in your 20s, not in your teens, like
Nope.
midlife, own a house,
Correct.
full-time job, just pretty set, kids, older. Okay, so all that's happening. So,
all that's happening.
So like first of January, it's like, hey, you want to just go be a foreign missionary?
Right, and then there was a lot going on with us too in the church at the time. We were getting ready to be appointed evangelist and women's ministry leader at the end of January. So that was already in the works. We were planning that out. There was some shifts happening in the church. And so the hope was for us to move to go to one part of the church and lead a particular part of lead a particular region. So that was all in the works. And then, the campus ministry where we were at was just taking off. And there were some difficult things happening in the church as well that we were kind of in the middle of trying to get resolved. And so I felt like there was a lot of things we were trying to figure out at that time while becoming the evangelist and women's ministry leader. And it was very tough. It was very tough. And like you said, we had a house, not the wine, but I just spent so much time building a deck. Like we put a deck in the backyard. Me and my brother did all the work in the fall to get ready for the summer. Like patio we made, fire pit we made. I mean, all of this work. I thought I cannot wait to enjoy this yard in the springtime. And I thought, and my wife was amazing. My wife said, well, it's okay. Somebody else will get to enjoy it. Thanks, babe.
The words of the old song, "This world is not my home. I'm just a passing through."
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my
Just
gosh.
passing through.
That's right.
But I do have to say, honestly, with this decision, my wife was probably I mean, that's just her nature. They're super faithful. Every time I was the one that kind of kept thinking, let's pull back, let's pull out of it. And she would say, Dwayne, this could be from God. Nope, don't do it. Whether it's different concerns about the church. She says, like, the church here will be fine. Got to work it out. We're not expendable. You know what I mean? Like, he'll raise up other people. But even my kids, the biggest thing for me was my kids.
Right.
And really feeling like my kids are going to hate me.
Yep.
I told you, I feel like they're going to hate me so much.
Mm-hmm.
So much of our relationship was predicated on football in the States, activities within the state, holidays, traditions, Christmas, Thanksgiving. I felt like, oh my goodness, they're going to hate me if we move there. And she said, Dwayne, even if they don't understand now, they'll appreciate it later. And let's just trust God. And then once we went there to interview at one point. That was the big thing for us. I think once I went there to interview, all of my fears were just removed completely. God showed me his plan for my kids with their education, with the team ministry there in Barbados. I think extracurricular activities, I saw what they can do. I feel like there was more opportunities there for them than even in the States. The people there, I saw the work that we would be doing. And at that point, coming back home, I thought, that's why I made the decision coming back in late March. Like, okay, if they would hire us, we would gladly accept. Let's do it. Let's go.
Wow. Okay. So took you about 3 months.
God resolved all of it.
That's great. And so, I mean, I don't know what the percentage was, but like, I can't imagine. I mean, 9 times out of 10 people say, I'm not doing it. Got kids in high school and stuff like that. That's really a gutsy move. I mean, a middle age, woo, that's impressive. So when did you actually move there? What was your first day in Bridgetown?
July, right?
Yep, July 10th,
Okay.
2022.
So it took you six months, July 10th of 2023. What were your initial impressions when you landed?
Of the island, or of the church, or everything, I guess, huh?
How about both?
So I'll say initially, when we first landed, I thought, the church is very loyal. I think that was one thing. I mean, it took so much effort to move somebody from the States to Barbados. The visa process. When I arrived, there was a car waiting for me. I've never driven on the left side of the road in my life. And they had a car waiting for me with keys saying, here you go, Dwayne. I thought, whoa. There was a home for us to be in for temporarily until our house got, finalized and the place was open for us to move in. But I felt like the church itself, and big up to Caroline, who's a sister here. I mean, she was like my big sister auntie who just took care of us, helped us with everything from the kids, getting them situated in sports, getting them the school figured out, testing figured out. I mean, it was just a lot of work, bro. Getting my license. I mean, it's so much work.
Wow.
And they all just came together. That's that's what this church is known for, just hardworking people.
Okay, so give me the background of the church in Barbados. How long has it been there? Who planted it? What's the growth been like? Where the size of the church? Can you just kind of help me out there?
Yeah, so the church was planted early 1993. And eventually, maybe after the first year or soon after, Damien Jean-Baptiste came to lead it. His brother at first was his dad. His dad was here first, and then he came to lead the church. And he, for the most part, led it. I mean, there's times he had to go back to Jamaica or get called to other places to help. But for the most part, he's been the main evangelist here. And he oversaw the Caribbean at one point, all of the churches in the Caribbean while leading. And amazing, dynamic man. I never met him personally, but I mean, I don't think anyone has any bad thing to say about Damien. I mean, just an amazing human being, amazing disciple. But then he passed away suddenly back in 2012, at the end of 2012. I think he's around 46 years old. Got ill, passed away, and the church for the most part, been somewhere between, 100, 150. I think it got somewhere near 200 at its biggest stage. That's kind of where it's always been around. But then once he passed away in 2012, that started a really challenging decade, I think, for the church, where, different people have stepped up to lead, whether it's a group, they had a group of 3 couples who led for a while.
Working full-time jobs
and leading the church. That grew super challenging. And then at some point, once they resigned, then the board of directors took over for a while to keep things going. And then eventually there was kind of a committee. The church kind of just broke up into lots of committees to kind of keep things going until they could find a solution with full-time leadership. So,
10 years.
Yeah. So one thing I can tell you, the church is used to having a lot of committees working together. They ran this thing like a oil machine, man. When we came and visited, we thought, whoa,
very impressive.
Very impressive. Lots of committees.
Yes.
So it was a group effort. They just kind of banded together and just kept it going. So it was a little over 100 when you guys got there.
Yeah, when we got there, you know how it is. It's always hard to know exactly who's in and who's not really in. But eventually I was able to kind of take my spreadsheet and work it to about 102 disciples.
Okay.
But, a lot of people weren't coming out before we got here. So I think that was a big thing. Just people started coming out more to check us out. Who are these foreigners who are leading now?
Yeah.
What are they going to really do? Are things going to really change? Yeah, and just to share too, I think the other thing that was challenging though, but I think because there wasn't a full-time leadership, and one thing I've learned is that, man, sometimes leadership just helps you to be able to have a clear vision and focus and resolve simple matters, right? And it's kind of like being at home and you got capable children, but sometimes without some kind of shepherd, it's hard just to know how to move forward. So I think a lot of amazing disciples here, been around for a long time. Almost everybody here has been baptized in the early 90s.
Yeah, 30 years, these people.
But without full-time leadership, the problem became just direction, just directionless, aimless. Where do we go?
Well, it's really interesting doing a little research on Barbados. It's really relatively small. Less than 300,000 people on the island. Bridgetown says it has about 110,000 people, maybe a little bit more. It could be more or less, but it's pretty small. We're talking, relatively small, and English speaking.
Yep.
Former British colony, and just fairly recently gained independence, and that's really interesting. What was it like coming there as an American couple? Were you accepted? How'd that go?
Yeah, I think because we both have African roots. I was born in Ethiopia, but I was raised in America. So that helped with the transition. Dwayne is first generation American. His parents are Liberian. And so I think that was able to connect us with the people here, right? With the African roots. But as far as, and for me too, because I understand the foreign mindset, coming to America and learning the language and, learning the culture, transitioning to Barbados for me was like, okay, great. It's kind of like going back home in a sense. But I know for my husband, it was definitely a big transition as far as the convenience, the efficiency, the heat, so certain things that he had to get used to. But I think for our kids, they have visited Ethiopia with us. We took them to Ethiopia in 2019. So it was a good for them to be in a foreign land and kind of get a taste. And so coming to Barbados was like, okay, it looks a little familiar, but of course the modern conveniences of Walmart and fast food and different things, that was hard for my kids. It was hard for the whole family.
So you
can I share too? Oh, go ahead.
So you were born in Ethiopia?
Yes, I was born in Ethiopia, and then I came to America when I was 5.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so you speak Ethiopian
Yes, that was my first language. Amharic. Yes.
Amharic.
Yeah,
Okay.
English is my second language.
Wow. Okay. So you're an immigrant into the States, and
Yes.
there are two sisters that I knew back when we led the church in Seattle, Washington, and I think they're in the Bay Area now. I wonder if you know them. The name escapes me right now. They're also from Ethiopia. I'm sure it's a pretty tight-knit community. Now, that's really interesting. Okay, so you're from Northeastern Africa, and your family is from West Africa.
West Africa. Yeah.
Okay.
Complete, yeah.
Okay.
And can I say one thing too? I mean, it's totally God. I feel like God had prepared us for Barbados, but we didn't even know it because, like she was saying, I visited Ethiopia 3 times. And back when we were going through a lot of our challenges, but what do we want to do with our lives ministry-wise, Tsega was really passionate about moving to Ethiopia and said, Dwayne, we should take our family, move to Ethiopia. So I counted the cost a lot about even moving to Ethiopia.
Help the church
there, get an IT job there, just work as an IT guy. And so I think a lot of things that I felt very uncomfortable about being a foreigner, I wrestled with that a lot, with the idea of moving to Ethiopia. And Ethiopia would have been even more challenging because I don't know the language, like she knows the language. I know just a few phrases. But I think just the heat, the layout, all those things. I think I was already kind of used to it. And my kids somewhat too, because they've been to Ethiopia several times. So I think Barbados kind of was like somewhere in between, right? English speaking, but it's still a foreign land. But I think it helped the transition to be a lot easier.
Wow. Okay, that's crazy. Okay, so your family's from Addis originally, or some other place?
Addis, yeah.
Yep.
Yes, the capital.
Okay, great. Well, let me get back here on track. That is really interesting. What were you facing when you arrived? Like when you looked at the church, you saw the congregation, like you roll up your sleeves, you go, okay, boom, we got some work ahead of us. What did you see, and what were your goals when you first arrived? Like when you thought about like your 90-day plan or whatever, what was it that you were, locked in on?
Yeah, share. Yeah, this. Yeah, I get excited about this. So when we first got there, for sure, we had learned a lot even when we were there originally in March. But our first goal was, one, just to fast for God to make us into the leaders you need us to be. So I know I fasted for a good amount of time, and and we decided just to try to meet with as many people as possible. We said it from the pulpit, hey, we want to get everybody into our home, or we want to come to your home and just try to learn, what your desires are for the church, what your desires are for God. And so that was our initial, I just want to say 90-day start, was just, let's just listen and gather up information, get some intel into the situation. And, initial difficulties for sure was that there was just a lot of hurt from everything, to feeling abandoned because, after Damien's gone, I felt like, man, we felt isolated. There was hurts within the congregation towards each other. There's some groups that sided with some and didn't side with others. So there was kind of, I won't say a split, but there was a clear fragmented family. They all loved each other, but just had so much history of hurt, and how things have been done, how things have been handled, that I think that was one of the biggest challenges coming in, was just that people were hurting. Because of that, a lot of people weren't as eager to want to talk or eager to step in or help, because they felt like, man, I've been doing this since the early 90s and I'm done. I'm burnt out. I'm tired, and I feel hurt. And the children.
The children, yep. Yes, definitely. That was the biggest cry when we first got here, is the youth. I believe the youngest disciple when we first got here was 26 years old.
Whoa.
And so, so I think for most of the disciples, they're like, how are we going to reach the next gen? How are we going to reach our kids? And that was the cry. And so I think that was one of our goals as well, is to reach their children.
Yeah, and I think that was an area of sadness too, because I think, at one point, there was a vibrant campus ministry, there was a vibrant singles ministry, there was a vibrant teen ministry, and not, I mean, teams are still around. I think they're doing a great job with what they have. But with think about the pandemic already and how hard it was to keep young people faithful during the pandemic. Then they didn't have a campus minister or have a full-time leader leading the church. So I think they were just trying to maintain. So I think the whole vision for the youth and their young adults, it was hard to keep it going. And so a lot of their children left and were
after the pandemic too. Yeah.
Oh yeah, just stopped coming out, not interested, living lives in the world. And even when we got here, we thought, whoa, there's like a whole nother church of just these non-converted young adults who don't come to church. And that's painful. It was very, very painful to see that.
Okay, so you get there, you get to listen to everybody, you're fasting, you're praying. People are saying, man, what about our kids? Okay, so at that point, you develop a strategy. You go, okay, this is what we're going to focus on. How's it gone since then? How's the church grown? You came in, you had like 101, 102 members. How's it gone?
Yeah, so to the glory of God, we started with 102, and we just celebrated us reaching the 120 mark a few weeks ago with a young girl who was baptized Christian. So that's exciting.
That's incredible. Okay, 20% growth in a year. That's amazing. That's
really, praise God.
Okay, so how'd you do it? Like what was your strategy? What were you doing?
I know so much of this is God, but I get it too. There are some things that we did. Well, I think for us the big thing was figuring out, okay, where's the harvest at? Mm-hmm. Where's the harvest? And we know for sure we need to get some fresh folks in here from the college. That's where we were converted at. We know those are people who are questioning, their identity, their purpose, their mission. And so we thought, okay, how can we get on campus? That was the first thing. We got to get on campus. Yeah. And at the same time, which is encouraging, is that we knew that we were hearing that there were some young people who were interested in studying the Bible that were already kind of it was already happening in the making.
It started happening. Yeah.
Started happening when we got there. But they needed somebody to help them move along. So we got on campus early September. The campuses here are super open. I mean, just
one major university.
University of West Indies. But you could just walk on there. They want you to talk about Jesus. They want you to evangelize. Like, go for it. Have a good time. No restrictions. Off the street. And so we did that often. Weekly basis. Yeah, I think actually twice a week at one point. We just go on campus and evangelize. Sure. And just me and my wife go there, do Bible talks, and kind of just built a relationship, tried to start a club on campus. And through that time, and this was when we first got there were several baptisms, about maybe 3 baptisms happened, but they happened not necessarily with the people who were meeting on campus. We were kind of building a family on campus, but then some of the kingdom kids in the church got baptized. The big one was, I think, we talked about one gentleman whose mom and dad at one point actually led the church here. But then he left, the father left the church. Mom has been faithful for, all these years. This has been over a decade that her husband left the church. Her son and daughter grows up, and that son was baptized that October. And despite all the challenges happening in the church, despite all the pain, difficulty, bitterness that people felt toward each other, he's like the happiest guy. He's like, this is my family. I love this church. I love the Bridgetown church. This is my uncle. And so he's like the biggest cheerleader for the church. I mean, and they all love him. He's charismatic, fun. And so I think his baptism really just started a big, it was a big avalanche. And I remember as we did the discipleship study, I asked him, hey, so what are your ambitions for God? He's like, I don't know. And I remember telling him, I said, well, you're going to convert a lot of your friends. There's a lot of people in the church that are kingdom kids, and you're going to help them become Christians. He's like, oh, really? Me? Like, yeah. And what's really cool is that a few weeks ago, we were talking about that conversation, and he's like, yeah, like God's used him in a lot of ways. He's been one of my right-hand guys to help convert so many more of his friends in the church. So God's used him in a crazy way to help convert, along with just us focusing on campus ministry, having events at our house, having events at his house.
Campus devotionals every Friday night or every other Friday.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
Every other Friday, having devotionals. A lot of the Kingdom kids come out. That even sometimes they don't even come to church, but they come to these campus devotionals.
Yep.
We started having retreats. So we had a retreat back in January of 2024. Had another camp that we had this past summer, all for our teens and for our campus students. And then also we've been connecting with the rest of the Caribbean because everyone's in the same boat. Well, one of the challenges of the Caribbean is we're all isolated like crazy. No one gets to visit each other. No one sees each other as much. So we've been trying to pull together with the other campus ministries and other campus ministry leaders and figure out, can we do joint devotionals on Zoom? How can we just keep our people connected and inspired? And that's been, I think, really, really encouraging for the entire region of the Caribbean, being able to have our ministries talk. And now we're actually going to have a conference this upcoming first one ever, Caribbean Campus Ministry Conference. CCMC is what we're calling it.
Jamaica.
And that's going to be in Jamaica. When is that going to happen?
June 19th, 2025. First ever. So we're excited. I just finished the promotion video. We're going to get the information out.
That is awesome. That's great. How many people do you think you'll have show up? What's your guess?
We're hoping for somewhere around 60 or 70, I'm thinking.
Wow. Okay.
As far as students. Yeah, DR has a huge campus ministry. And
but it's different, multilingual. So we have Haiti, we have DR, Spanish, and that's the beauty of the Caribbean.
Beauty and the challenge.
Yes.
4 different languages we all speak.
Oh boy, lots of translation. So DR, Dominican Republic. Okay. Great for baseball, obviously.
Oh yeah.
Okay. That is awesome. So you're not only kind of reviving your youth ministry, the teens and
for sure.
Kingdom kids and the campus, but also pulling together other churches, kind of developing the unity among the churches and church leaders.
Yes. We all need each other for sure.
That's
awesome. And we were able to take our campus students to Trinidad for their teen camp. And I think that was a main turnaround for one of our Kingdom kids when he went to Trinidad and went there for camp, came back, started studying the Bible, became a disciple about 3 weeks ago. But those relationships are so huge.
Yep.
So we're so grateful for those opportunities.
Yeah, we've even brought in other campus people from Jamaica or from Trinidad, bringing them in here to do weekends. Baltimore sent a couple the summer. So we've just been trying to.
So if you want to come, call us, please.
It helps. It does help. It does help.
That's great. What's been difficult? What's been challenging?
I think the challenge is just
our kids too. Our kids transition. Our first Sunday service was woo. You could see our kids. They were sitting in the front seat, just completely Momo. And that was the beginning of, oh my gosh, I think reality was sinking in for them. Like, this is not vacation. This is my life, And so I think for us, that has been the main challenge.
For sure.
Coming to family dinners and just the mood, the energy. And that takes away a lot of our energy in the sense in the beginning. And I think that was like, God, please, help us.
Hard.
Being gentle and loving with our kids, but yet also helping them to accept reality. Yes. And so I think that was the biggest for us, I believe, hurdle.
Very true.
Because they did come at a tender age of relationships. And even though there was a lot of transition with middle school, elementary school, which is good, but friendships, that was a cry, And so when one is sad, it's like the others it's contagious, that mood.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
it definitely felt like a funeral in our home for like the first 2
really
months.
did.
I mean, I hated having dinner time. I didn't want to be around them, to be honest with you. I didn't want to be around them, Rob. It was so hard. Like, how are you doing? Just grunting. How you think I'm doing? Like, like you can't just have conversation. And the big thing is a lot of their anger is directed towards us.
Yeah.
Right.
And so there was just a cold war.
Yeah.
And, you want to ask them how they're doing. They don't want to talk about it because they're like, this stinks. We don't want to be here. What do you want me to say? And if you try to be happy or smile about anything, they're like, it's rubbing it in, So you're trying to create experiences for them. Let's go to the beach. You go there. How was it? It was horrible. We didn't want to be there, And so I think they even made a treaty with each other, and they would be very. One thing I love about my kids, they're very honest and vocal. And so they made a treaty that, hey, we're not going to like it here. We're going to make a pact that we're not going to like it. Don't try to convince us to like it. Don't try to make us like it. Don't make us smile. We're going to just hold our breath until we get back to America and however many years it takes. So we had to work through a lot of those feelings. Sorry, let's say one more thing. Just show you how crazy it is too. You never know what can trigger their emotions, right? At one point back in December, we had fun. We went to the beach and a cruise ship came in, and we were having a great time. People got off the cruise ship. They were from the UK, I think. But when the cruise ship left, one of my kids saw people getting back on the ship and going back to their home, and he just lost it. Like, he just face dropped. That's not fair. Why can't I go back home? They get to come and go whenever they want to. And he even says, people in my school asking me, "You're from the U.S.? Why are you here? Why would you want to come here if you're from the U.S.?" And he's like, and so he's mad at me. "Dad, why'd you bring me here again?" Even my friends think I'm weird for being here. And so it was just, a lot of hard conversations. Because sad, you feel bad, but at the same time, you're trying to help them to see the bigger picture, which is really hard at this age.
Has it gone better? How have things gone more recently now that you've been there over a year, a year and 3 months or something? And what's helped you with your kids and how have things changed?
Getting a little emotional. Trying to cry. Faith, man. This has been the biggest test of my faith I feel like I've had in a long time. And I think I pray every day for my kids since they were born that they would become disciples. And I got to admit, there's been a lot of times where I've thought, did I mess up my kid's life or the chance of becoming a Christian by coming here? And I think just believing, having faith, my wife really still believing that this is going to be great for their spirituality. Other people encouraging me, people who've been missionaries saying, "Dwayne, trust me, it's going to get better. Here's what to do right now. Help me not to be angry or be, I would get mad at them sometimes too. Like, what's wrong with you guys? And kind of help me to have compassion. But I feel like they've been doing well. We've had many retreats, youth retreats to help build relationships with other kids. And they're all excelling in school. They're doing great at school. They have great friendships at school.
Yeah, friendships is a big deal. Building friendships. Yeah.
And the rest of it, honestly, God has done so much too.
Yes.
I mean, like my daughter's an artist and a dancer and a drama. She loved that type of arts. And when we moved here, there's a disciple that lives like literally like a minute and a half from us. Driving. And she owns a dance studio. This is what she does. She's a production lady. So my daughter's all involved in drama, the arts. She's done performances already with a group
in
called
Trinidad as well.
She traveled to Trinidad. So to perform. My son was the MVP of the basketball league in Barbados for the secondary school. I mean, it's just crazy. And it's like, it's just
Our
God.
youngest is playing cricket.
My youngest, had no clue what cricket is. Now he's in the cricket team. And so it's just totally God. God just loves them. I think God has given them opportunities to recognize, hey, you know what, you can shine here as well. And also and I think we just have the church here was great, man. I mean, they really embraced our kids and trying to help them with, learn about God and build friendships. I see, it's
God takes care of you when you make a faithful decision.
Yeah,
Really
yeah. Seek first His kingdom and all the other stuff. God's like, I'll work it out.
It really is true.
So I think that's been hard for me. Just don't be discouraged. Be strong and courageous. That's been my scripture, Joshua 1:9.
That's right.
Just be strong and courageous.
That's right.
Don't give in to fear.
Yeah. And I honestly think too, it's the greatest gift that we can give them is putting our faith into action. So us even moving to Barbados, I believe the scriptures come to life. Like this is what it means to live out your faith. And so, but also just giving them an opportunity to be outside of America. I think for me, that was a gift, coming from another country to America. And it's going to teach them so many character building, whether it's being able to look at those who are on the outside and have compassion. And I don't know, I just feel like it's a great gift.
Yeah.
So I'm really grateful.
Yep.
Wow.
It's also too, by the way, it's exposed a lot of things in all of our characters that wouldn't have gotten exposed.
We didn't get out of our comfort zone.
We didn't get out of our comfort zone. Yeah. So it's actually been a part of the growth process. I think to help them become Christians.
Yeah.
To dealing with some of these, things in their character, and they're my character too.
Yeah. I mean, I just couldn't agree more. I just feel like it's such a great example for you guys to do that with your kids, the age they are. I can only imagine how tough it would be. I mean, it's, that's one of the toughest challenges. I mean, we've made a couple moves to go on the mission field. One, when our kid was born, 6 weeks old, we went to Japan, and then we moved to Oregon, and our kids were in elementary school, and that was I remember our kids crying when we told them we're moving, and it breaks your heart when you see your kids cry.
Right.
I mean, it's just, there's nothing tougher. And then coming to Tucson when our middle son was in high school, and it's just really tough, and then just arriving here and seeing him come home and say, "Hey, did you sit with anybody?" He said, "No, I sat by myself at lunch." And
yep.
Yeah.
It's hard, man.
Yeah,
you just hurt for your kids. But at the same time, I totally agree with you. I feel like when you do put your faith into practice, your kids see that. They know that their parents' faith is real. This is real life. It's not a game. So I just, I just feel like you can't shield your kids. Like they need to walk with you. They need to see you walking it. And so that's awesome. Okay. One more thing. You can take what you want. But I think too, for example, like one of our kids, this happened recently, beginning of the school year, they were going through a hard time. And so they came up to us and said, "Hey, I've done some research and I actually found a boarding school in England, and I'm planning on moving from Barbados. I just need you to help me raise. I just need $20,000 for a scholarship." I mean, and they were dead serious. I mean, like every day, "Hey, Daddy, hey, come on, can you let me go to UK?" And I'm thinking, what in the world is this child talking about? Like, and I felt hurt too. Like, you're gonna leave the family because you don't want to be with us. And I eventually, through some wisdom, took the child out for a date, and my child broke down crying, saying, "Okay, you know what? Maybe this doesn't make any sense, but I can't do this here. This place wasn't meant for me." Just crying. And it's funny because after that, I think next day they were super happy. One of their friends came back to school, and now they've been like doing great ever since that moment. And I just share that because I think that one thing my kids are learning that I think is going to really help them already as we talk about discipleship is that I'm not in control of my destiny. I don't decide, God's the one who decides the path he wants for my life. I can't control God. And I think that knowing my child and knowing that how reliant they are, I choose what makes me happy and I do what I want to do. This whole thing has broken them down to recognize that, no, I got to humble myself before God and trust his way and not trust my own. And actually, I see that they've actually embraced that a lot more now, that they wouldn't have embraced it at first without this kind of challenge. Right.
Yeah.
How's your marriage gone? Just moving down there, like any impact? Has gotten better, worse? How are you guys doing?
Yeah, I think we've had to really fight to make sure that we keep our rhythms of, going on dates and getting out and exploring, praying together, going to the beach. So I think it's been
I think it
healthy.
got better, honestly. I think we have more time, more so, I think.
That's true. Caribbean's a little slower.
It is
Caribbean
slower.
life.
Yes. It is island time in many ways. And so I think we got a chance to have more time to connect, to talk, to plan.
That's true.
Being together.
That's true.
I mean, we're definitely doing this together.
We only have one car.
That's right.
One car, yeah.
So we're together everywhere.
Yes.
That's true. We're together a lot. So I think it's been encouraging. And I think it's been exciting to dream together. We celebrate all the victories. Whenever we have tough conversations, we're able to talk about it and encourage each other. It's been great. It's been a fun adventure.
That's awesome. That's great. When you arrived, the members, they shared, just how difficult it was not seeing their kids become Christians. Now that these young kids are becoming Christians, both from within the church and outside the church, what's been the impact on the older members? Like, what have you seen? How are they taking this? The seeing the church grow. I mean, that's rapid growth. 20% in a year. That's really, really rapid. So, what's the atmosphere like now as compared to when you arrived?
Where we go?
Go for it.
Yeah. It's been cool. I mean, church is definitely packed. I'll tell you that much. Church has been packed. We don't have AC in the building we're in, so it's really hot. But even despite not having, oh yeah, trust me, bro. Everyone's soaking wet by the time church starts. But I mean, it's packed, and we've done a lot of other things outside of just the youth ministry. We've have many campaigns with the church, trying to help the church to see the need for them to reach their communities. And I do feel like overall, everyone's been really excited, really encouraged.
Having hope. I think a lot of hope. That's what I get. Like, they see the youth becoming disciples, and it just gives them so much revived faith.
Right.
That their own kids can become disciples. There's a lot of, I think, joy. It brings more joy. It's very intergenerational. We have family groups now. It's not just, we do meet for campus ministry, but the campus ministry is infused into other family groups. So it's intergenerational. So they get to build with different aunties and uncles. And so I do see those links coming together.
Yeah. The thing we did do, I don't know if I shared this, but this is a really important part of the moving forward as a church. We, over time, laid out a 2028 vision for the church. And so we wanted to be very clear up front. This is where we're trying to go in the next 4 years. And part of that vision was that we want at least 20% of the membership to be under 40 years old. And of course, when you share things like that, it triggered some, because not everybody is super excited about just focus on the youth. Of course, everybody wants to know, what about me? What about, us folks over here? So we wanted to make sure that, okay, we want everybody to be a part of this vision, because honestly, when the church gets younger, you actually, here's what I've learned from this was from a book that I read. It said that when you focus only on older members and converting older members, that's all you'll get is older people being happy. If you focused on middle-aged people, you'll get middle-aged people getting converted and older people getting converted. But if you focus on younger people, you actually see younger people, middle-aged, and older people getting converted, because everybody wants to be in a place where everyone wants to be in an environment where they feel younger and they feel youthful. And we're seeing that. I think it's not even just the older people becoming disciples, but the younger people. But I feel like the older people too, we're seeing them be revived and them be encouraged and them studying the Bible. And so we've had some, it's funny, we've had some younger baptisms, and then we had people in their, 60 to 80s. One guy in his 80s got baptized as well. So
that's awesome. Okay, so your goal by 2028 is to have at least 20% of your church under the age of 40.
Yes. And so, yeah, what we laid out was 20% of our church under the age of 40, 15 thriving family groups around the island. Right now we have about 10 family groups. So we said, and this was all with their help. This wasn't just me in a bubble. This was us talking with the leadership and praying and getting a lot of input from the outside. We want to have 15 thriving family groups around the island. Our goal is to have a family group in each parish. And so that's one thing we're working on. And then also we talked about just having a church building is a big thing that we're praying about, that we want to have in the next 4 years. And then also to have, we call it 45 good shepherds, where we have 15 family groups, that'll be 30 leaders. And then we wanted to have staffing, deacons, a few elders, and a couple on our campus and a couple on our teams. So overall, it amounts to about 45 leaders in the church. So that's kind of something we put before them that was measurable. And that was scary to do, but
that's awesome. How was
that? I wanted to be clear. We're going somewhere.
How was that received when you laid that out?
For the most part, people were excited. People were, and it's funny, and there were a few people who felt like, that's it? Can't we do more? Because you got some people who are radical, been here since back in the day. They've seen, baptisms out the wazoo. They're like, we could do more than that. And then there were some people who felt like, here we go. We're putting numbers out there. Are we? And I was trying to encourage the church, look, we're not a slave to the numbers, but we got to be clear where we're going. That's right. And not just hope it happens by happenstance. We have to be very clear. So we got some friction a little bit, and we're still, but even still, there's some friction we have to work through. But for the most part, people are happy.
What I find really, really powerful is you come into a church that's been stagnated for a long time. I mean, years, and so middle-aged, well into middle age. Most Christians are like 30 years old. Young people aren't becoming Christians. That's depressing. That's a depressing situation. But there's a lot of churches that are like that. There might be church leaders listening to this right now who are in that situation where it's like the church is just stuck. What advice would you give? What helped you to bring revival, to bring a change? What was there any kind of insight? You've shared a little bit about focusing on the youth, and you focused on their direct need. Hey, we want our kids. That's good. Anything else?
Yeah, I think personally, I don't care how big our ministry gets, I'm always going to have my hands somewhat in the campus ministry and in the youth. I believe it's good for my own faith to be evangelizing, sharing. It keeps me faithful in many ways. It just keeps me seeing God work. So I need those. I think also it's training for leadership in the future and not just focus on the here and now. But then I think also as well, it's important to even rally the church around that. I think too many times the campus ministry has been one entity over here and then the rest of the church is over here, far away. And I think what we're trying to do is really help even the church to embrace adopting young people, because there's so much wisdom here in the Bridgetown. So much. People are awesome, but that wisdom isn't getting passed down unless we can kind of be that bridge to say, hey, and that's why we've made our family groups a lot more intergenerational, where we can include the teens and the campus students and having aunties and uncles.
So you mix them together. You don't quarantine your campus students over in like just the campus ministry only. You mix them together with the other members of the church. Okay.
Both.
Yeah.
Okay,
both. They have their own thing they do as well, but then we try to create the calendar so that they can be able to have their own devotionals. The teens can have their own devotionals, but yet still we can try to free them up to be a part of family groups, and so they can be a part of those as well and bring their friends.
Okay. 120 plus members now. What are you going to do that's a lot of people to keep track of. Are you raising up new leaders? How are you going to share the burden?
Yeah. So, this is funny. So, what I like to believe, I'm a big fan of Robert Coleman's Master Plan of Evangelism. And I believe discipleship, it really is caught more than it's taught. And so me being here, part of my mission was I need to grow as a leader, as a man could tell people, come follow me as I follow Jesus, right? That's going to be the way I'm going to move this church forward, not just by preaching a lot of nice messages, but I got to be in the trenches with these men and tell them, say, hey, come follow me. So our prayer over the past year was to gather around us the right influential people that we could say, all right, guys, together, we're going to work together to build this church. And you guys are going to be the ones going to help influence the other leaders. And those leaders are going to influence their people. And that way, kind of like with the Exodus 18, Jethro principle, that we can really build this church. Hard thing is that you're trying to figure out who are those people. And those people may not even want to be those people. And so we're kind of organically trying to figure out and pray, okay, God, who do we surround ourselves with that can help us? Because we can't do it alone. Everybody wants you to come. When you move here, hey, man, we have a full-time leader, fix everything. Fix every marriage, fix every problem in our Bible talk. I'm like, no, this is not going to work. We're wearing ourselves out. And so that's been our hope. And I think God's working it out. We're trying to get a group together that can help really equip them to lead the church while we stay at the forefront.
Did you walk into a situation where people were supportive immediately? Did you have like a leadership group that was like, hey, we're gonna help you out? Or how did you build a team around you? Like, what'd you do you got to have an influential group that's going to drive the mission and your objectives.
So what I'll say, and Tsega's great at this, right? I think when we got here, we feel super supported. Like, tell us what to do and we'll do it, kind of deal. Like, everyone's like, we want, you're the guy. And that's one reason why I think this church is doing so well is because I think everyone embraces leadership. Yep. You're the authority figure, not in a weird way, like we can't speak to you. Respect. It's a respect that we feel like if God put you here, you're going to show us the way to go. And I think I felt that way ever since I've been here. Yep. Now, as far as we actually want to be the people doing the work, that's been the tricky part. Like, we support you, but I think there's been hurt feelings, like I said before. There's been fatigue, relationship battles. And so our goal was just, and Tsega's great at this, she probably can speak better at this, let's just befriend, love these people, and then over time, start bringing them in. And as we bring them in, eventually they'll become kind of friends, trusted advisors. And so that's kind of what we've been doing. No real title. We're not putting any title, no pressure, no title. Just let's just build this friendship and let's work together and let's let them know that we need them. And so they helped us to come up even with this whole 2028 vision, getting their advice and, getting them away. Let's talk, let's build. And now I think we're at the point where we're starting to say, hey, guys, since we're already close and we're encouraging each other, would you guys mind now taking on some real responsibility and help? Right. They were doing things already, but now kind of more formalized.
Right.
And they're like, yeah. And they kind of come up with ideas themselves. Yeah, we should go and
that's awesome.
Disciple each other. And we should go and help. I'm like,
right.
Yes.
Well, I can imagine that just seeing people get saved is so instructive and powerful. I mean, it just totally. It like rekindles a fire in any disciple. They see a person saved and it's like everything gets recalibrated. Like, oh, that's what it's all about. And I'm sure just you guys bringing the victory and helping people to kind of refocus, like, hey, we can do this. The church is not dead. It's there. Right. The Spirit's here with us. What a difference it must have made. That's great.
For
so
sure.
You've got a 4-year plan. What are you trying to get done? Just briefly, what are you trying to get done this second year? Like what do you see as like, hey, this would be great if this happened in the second year. First year, man, boom, lots of baptisms, youth ministry getting revived. What's your goal the second year?
Yeah.
Healthy discipling.
Mentorship,
whatever word you want to use.
Prayer, partner.
Okay.
Just more of that.
Let's talk a little bit about that. How are you getting people activated? I mean, I totally agree with you. It's super important. In the past, back in the day, it was like, hey, there's you'd create like a flow chart, like, hey, you're going to disciple you. And it's kind of like a tree, a discipling tree. How are you doing it in this day and age in terms of helping people get connected with each other? What's working, or what at least are you trying?
Yeah. And so, my goal by the end of the year is if everyone's in a healthy mentoring relationship, for me, that's a victory. That would be an amazing year. Like if it's consistently happening, great year.
Exactly.
What I've been doing, and I learned this from being a software developer, is that it's important to show people a case study or make case in points based on some of the issues that people are having. And so one thing I've been kind of telling people over and over again is that, hey, there's lots of people here in the church that could do more, but they don't feel supported. No one has their back. They haven't opened up about their marriage in forever. When they try to get help with their marriage, other people are weighed down in burdens, and so they don't have anyone to go to. And people, that resonates with people like, man, because they all love each other here. But that's sad that people feel like they're suffering in silence and no one's in their life helping them. And so I brought up enough case studies to show that, hey, we got to figure this out. We got to have one another's backs. And so what happened was the people that we feel like are very influential, we said, look, we want to have your back. And we had a little retreat where I shared with them that the Bible talks about carrying one another's burdens in Galatians 6. And I want to be here to help carry your burdens. And they all have a lot of things they felt. And so I think as they're talking and getting things off their chest and feeling encouraged, because they all want to get mentored or encouraged or whatever you want to call it. I mean, they're older, so it's not like I'm not going to mentor you, but I can't offer you a lot of direction and encouragement. Right. As they're getting it, now I'm trying to encourage them but we have a lot of other people underneath you that they feel the same way, like they're weighed down. Mm-hmm. And would you mind starting a group where you get with these leaders? So now we have our leaders get with a group of leaders and helping to kind of get with them once a month. And we just started that recently. We're getting with them once a month just to try to encourage them, help them be open, help them not to be weighed down. And so through that, we're going to try to start moving forward with now helping those people to take care of their family groups and make sure that everyone in their family group has some relationships and connections.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That's great. It sounds like a great plan. It reminds me of a quote from, I think, Bill Walsh, a 49ers coach from back in the 80s. And he said, focus on the process, not the prize. Focus on what produces results rather than the results. And I think
good point.
If you can get discipling going where people are feeling connected, they've got friends, they can talk to people, what a huge difference. But I think it's a big challenge for every church. And I recently went to a church conference, a church planting conference in the Bay Area, not sponsored by our family of churches, but just a larger group. And it was talking about the same thing. It's so funny, talking about Robert Coleman, master plan of evangelism, talked about how we need to make disciples. And it made me really happy because I'm like, that's been our forte in the past, but it's something that we need to make sure remains a strength, or at least it gets rekindled. Absolutely. So important. When you look back after a little over a year, what's been the most satisfying thing for you guys? Like when you look back that you go, oh, that's been awesome. What gives you a sense of pride?
Yeah, I love the relationships that are being forged. Even with the whole mentorship thing, like I've done 2 book clubs and they've met maybe 16, 17 weeks consistently for the most part. But it's really cool to see different women come together that were kind of close, but now because of this group and this constant meeting together and getting help with our marriage or getting help with our hearts, how it's forged these relationships. So I love people coming together and building relationships and community. I'm all about community. And so now when I see our church, I mean, our theme is we are family. I really feel like we are family. We just pulled off an event this past Saturday. It was a men's event. And it was Men's Day, but guess who was helping? It was the sisters that were helping the brothers. And it made such a tremendous difference with the sisters giving input, helping out. And everybody, the whole church was involved in this men's event, whether they're selling food for a fundraiser or working backstage or, so for me, that brings a lot of satisfaction to see the growth and the coming together and the healing. I see healing. And like you said, even when you're in Bible studies, wow, you are able to heal. And you're like, wow, okay, we're on the same, we're battling the same fight, right? We're in this together. And so that's been a satisfaction to me to see old, young come together. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. For me, honestly, it's facing fear. Honestly, I think where I feel most satisfied is that, there was a lot of plans we had, but there was so much fear of having to go out and be in front, having to preach every single week, having to get on campus by ourselves, telling the congregation, here's where we're going, but you're wrestling with, man, do I even have the courage to even want to make this happen, right? There's a lot of fear. And my kids, I really believe in that, man, what's going to happen with the youth and my kids. But I think what's been most satisfying for me is looking back and thinking, okay, I did what God called me to do and didn't shrink back because of fear. And to be able to use whatever gifts God's given me, knowing I still have a lot of weaknesses in a lot of areas and to get exposed, but still not letting that keep your eyes off of the fact that God can still work. And so I think looking back and just seeing, wow, like God accomplished a lot despite my fears and being comfortable. That's been most satisfying for me to see God work despite and not giving in to fear.
Yeah. That makes me tear up. I mean, that's really inspiring. And it's really awesome what you guys have done. Any advice that you give to those who want to make this life count, want to live a no regrets life? What would you tell a person?
Yeah, I don't want to sound like I'm, beating a dead horse here, but I really think it's important to believe that God really is with you. And I think there's so many times in my life where I doubted that God can use me. I think just doubt and discouragement, man, and fear is just a huge animal, man, that can rip you apart, kill every dream. And I thank God for the people like Ed Anton, Corey Stuck, different men in my past, Tony Millette, Alex Hernandez, all these guys who helped me to still believe that God is with me. Steve Stevenson, believing God is still with you, despite mistakes, despite fears, despite discouragement. No, God can still use you. And I think if you want to make this life count, I think it starts by really believing that God is with you. Right? I think once Gideon was able to recognize that, despite all of the challenges that he had with, in their past, that God could still use him as a mighty warrior to defeat the Midianites. It took him a while to get there, but that's okay. I think, he eventually was convinced. I think that's the big thing I just think about is you want to make this life count. Believe God is with you and then act on what he tells you to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, it'll be amazing.
Yeah, I think it's just putting God's word into practice. I mean, obviously, we studied the Bible with people when we were in the States so many times. Luke 9, deny yourself, take up your cross. And when the opportunity was presented to us, it's like, wow, am I going to actually apply this scripture? Am I going to live by faith and not by fear? And so I think definitely starts with the smaller choices every single day. And then when God calls you, you're going to be ready for that. But it starts with, being that wise builder. Let me put God's word into practice and great things will happen.
Yeah. That's what's so impressive about your situation is you guys had a comfortable lifestyle, living in the States, brand new deck, just ready to be used. I mean, just the nice middle-class lifestyle. And then you just jettisoned that and went on the foreign mission field and with kids. That's scary. That's really scary. And I think a lot of people get to that precipice where they're like, am I going to do this or not? And they just shrink back and they just go, no, there's always a reason why not to. There's always something that sounds good that, can satisfy satisfy your heart and just go, oh, okay, I can't do it right now, or I'll do it later or something like that. But man, the time just goes by so quickly. And what you've done is really just so inspiring. And I bet those people in the church are so happy you came and have brought life through the power of God to that church. And I just go, it's really, really an awesome story. And I want to commend you guys for inspiring me and inspiring the kingdom and just seeing people get saved, especially youth. That's awesome. And just want to wish you every blessing going forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rob. Appreciate you giving us the opportunity to speak and what you do on a regular basis with.
And inspiring us.
Yeah.
Yes, you have.
That's true. A lot of these podcasts are probably part of the reason why we're able to make the decision.
True.
Listen to a lot of them.
Yes.
Thanks, you guys. Thanks for listening. Here's how you can help support the program. First, let your friends know about the podcast. Secondly, read and review one of my books, either How to Plant and Grow a Church or Courage, How to Make This Life Count. You can find them on Amazon.com. Finally, support the program with a gift today. The link is in the show notes because my goal is to inspire you to make this life count, live a no regrets life, and multiply disciples, leaders, and churches. Have a great day and make this life count.